time has come for every child in the state of Washington to have access to on-site instruction.
Today, Governor Jay Inslee issuing an emergency proclamation to get Washington students back into the classroom, how he hopes this will help with struggling mental health.
I'll go through whatever I can personally to make sure that we're coming back.
After a year of being closed, Cottage Cafe will be serving up food soon. We'll tell you the changes you can expect to see once they open the doors.
We'll take 50% for now, sure.
And Washington moving into phase 3, providing hope for the local hospitality industry, especially when it comes to hotels. We're hearing from one of the most historic hotels in our region, and for them, this isn't the first pandemic they've been faced with.
Tracking some nice, mild weather for the weekend, which includes some sunshine. Details on that next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here for KREM 2 News at 5. I'm Whitney Ward.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Hanrahan, broadcasting from home tonight. Let's get right to our top story. The hospitality industry has been crushed by the pandemic, with some hotel staff saying they don't understand how they were able to survive this year. Now there is hope with Governor Inslee's announcement just yesterday that all Washington counties can move to phase 3 on March 22nd. After only being allowed 25% capacity, many hotels are thrilled to get bumped up to 50% capacity in just less than 2 weeks from now. Our Morgan Trow spoke with one of the most historic hotels in our region who told her during the pandemic they had to furlough some 1,200 employees.
Stepping into the Davenport Hotel is like stepping into a time machine, and they say that this pandemic shows that history just repeats itself. Moving into phase 3 shows this historic hotel that better days are coming, just like when they started to reopen after the Spanish flu pandemic.
The Davenport Hotel opened in 1914, just 4 years before the 1918 influenza.
This building has seen it's seen a pandemic already and survived it, so we're just happy to be able to survive it.
Marketing Director Matt Jensen says hospitals hit capacity, so the hotel converted their 7th floor to a quarantine wing for those infected and regularly provided meals for nurses. A centennial later, the hotel had to shut down once again. He says one day they were booked solid, but they lost everything the next day.
It's been devastating. The cancellations, that has been a big part of our world, especially that first 6 months.
Jensen says they furloughed around 1,200 staff members, many of them being restaurant workers and banquet staff.
Our hotels have been affected probably much more than other hotels just because we do a lot of groups and conventions.
Despite losing all of their events and traveling guests, the Davenport survived, and they are finally starting to bring back employees. He says a few hundred have returned to work, and with the announcement that Washington State is moving to phase 3, he is thrilled to welcome the community back in.
Having it at 50% is certainly going to help.
What has kept the local hotel chain's spirits high is the knowledge that this pandemic will pass.
The Spanish flu, it had 3 waves to it. COVID's kind of had 3 waves. We got all that great history to rely on.
Some aspects from early pandemic days will be kept for right now, such as the extensive cleaning, not providing valet parking, and drop-off room service. One of the first aspects they are bringing back is breakfast in the safari room, but people will have to wait for happy hour and the famous flatbread for a little while longer. Reporting at the Davenport, Morgan Trow, KREM 2 News.
Well, now with Washington moving into phase 3, significant changes also coming to the state's entire reopening plan. The main changes have to do with vaccines, 50% capacity for indoor spaces and sporting events. So we want to break down the top 3 things that you need to know as of tonight. 1, the expansion of Washington vaccine eligibility. On Wednesday, March 17th, that is this coming Wednesday, Washington will be moving to the next tier of eligibility. So everyone in tier 2 and then all the tiers before will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. So people in Tier 2 include workers in agriculture, food processing, grocery stores, public transit, firefighters, law enforcement, as well as workers in corrections, jails, and detention centers. And it includes anyone over the age of 16 who is pregnant or has a disability that could put them at a higher risk of COVID complications. All right, Top 2 takeaway, 50% of capacity for indoor spaces. Phase 3 officially allows 400 people maximum for any indoor space or for outdoor activities as well. This is going to apply to things like restaurants, gyms, movie theaters, fitness centers, and plenty of other businesses as well. Restaurants can also offer alcohol service until midnight. And the top 3 takeaway, sporting event changes. Some outdoor spectators will finally be allowed at sporting events in Phase 3. So events in facilities with permanent seating can have up to 25% capacity for spectators. That means Seattle Mariners, for example, will be able to welcome fans for the team's opening day, which is coming up here on April 1st. For the Spokane Indians, this means they will be able to have about 1,700 fans in attendance when the season opens on May 4th. The change also allows the same capacity for high school sports, rodeos, and similar outdoor spectator events. Now, if you are a fan of the Cottage Cafe in Spokane Valley, we've got an update there too. After a year of being closed, the local restaurant says it will reopen soon in Phase 3. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley sat down with the owner today and shares when you'll likely be able to enjoy those iconic Eggs Benedict once again.
The inside of the Cottage Cafe is a view that I have definitely missed. But now that Washington State is moving into Phase 3 and expanding the capacity for restaurants to reopen, Cottage Cafe owners tell me it's ready to reopen.
I told my crew that a year ago when we shut down. I'll go through whatever I can personally to make sure that we're coming back. Because I don't know what else I would do.
Cottage Cafe owner Drew Baker was determined to reopen his Spokane Valley restaurant when the time was right and safe for all. He considered offering to go, but he says eggs don't travel well, and that's not the experience he wanted for customers.
Cottage has always been about coming in and dining in, and not having people able to dine in just didn't sit well with me.
For the most part, the owners and staff stayed pretty tight-lipped on when it would reopen. In June, it posted an elusive photo of an omelet and hash browns on Facebook that said, "Coming soon." But Friday morning, they broke silence and announced it would resume operations soon. Baker expects the Cottage Cafe will reopen for business in a couple weeks.
Give us at least 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah, and by then we'll be 50% capacity. We need a little time to spruce up the place and just get ready. We've all been out, haven't done it in a year, so we need to maybe practice a little bit.
Some changes may include serving only the breakfast menu as staff get back into the swing of things. But Baker is looking forward to seeing the booths filled and have noise back in the Cottage Cafe.
Keep tuned on Facebook. We'll let everyone know when we're about to open.
In Spokane Valley, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Well, after weeks of saying he couldn't force school districts to return to in-person learning, Governor Jay Inslee said today he plans to use emergency powers to require schools in Washington to do just that. For weeks, the governor has said it was the local school districts that would decide when and if they would return to in-person learning. However, the governor is getting frustrated with how slowly some districts in the state are doing so, even as evidence has shown transmission in schools is really low. And at the same time, the governor said there is mounting evidence that keeping kids out of school is taking a big toll on students' mental health.
I will be issuing an emergency proclamation that will give every K through 12 student that option for on-site instruction.
1 year after the state sent students home for what they thought would only be 6 weeks, Governor Inslee announced today he plans to use his emergency powers next week to require school districts to offer some in-person instruction for K through 12 students. A big reason why isolation is taking a toll.
We're doing this because we have experienced a mental health crisis for many of our children, and this will provide them an option that suits their needs of their families.
Dr. Nwando Anyaku, the Chief Health Equity Officer at Swedish Hospital in Seattle, said the impact is staggering, hitting underprivileged communities especially hard.
Here at Swedish, we have seen an extraordinary increase in the number of our emergency department and inpatient admissions due to psychiatric and behavioral health issues, a lot of stress, suicidal ideation. Just suicidal attempts, just heartbreaking numbers. In just the first 2 months of 2021, we're up 25% over last year. And we just know that that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Beyond the emotional toll, Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Reichdahl says remote-only instruction has led to an increase in absences, especially among middle and high schoolers, and a significant uptick in failing grades.
In the form of engagement or student attendance, we are unfortunately at every grade level seeing impacts, but especially middle school and high school.
Reichdahl said right now about half of the state's elementary school students have some access to in-person learning. About 40% of middle schoolers and 30% of high schoolers have that same access. Under the governor's emergency proclamation, every district will be required to hold at least 30% of their weekly average of instructional hours as in-person on-campus instruction for all K through 12 students. In terms of which districts this will impact, many of our local districts are already meeting these guidelines, or at least working toward them. Seattle Public Schools, though, meantime, has not returned to any in-person learning, so this will assuredly impact them. In terms of timeline, for K through 6, April 5th will be when they'll have to implement this. And then for K through 12, the rest of all the students in the state, April 19th is when they'll have to implement this. And by the way, the governor pointed out for students who want to remain with only online learning, they will have the option to do so.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. Well, if you have been enjoying the weather so far this week, get ready because it really is about to get a whole lot better. It's supposed to be sunny and warmer. Tom is outside actually probably basking in the sunshine. What can we expect in terms of what we've maybe experienced this week and what it's going to be this weekend?
Well, more of this. You know, it's just an absolutely beautiful Friday evening. You've got a few high clouds in the western horizon, but blue sky above us right here. We'll continue to see sunny and warm weather on your Saturday. Sunday will actually be a warmer day, but we'll get increasing clouds, and then we're going to look for much cooler weather to move in for next week. 51 degrees, that's the current temperature here in the Spokane area out at the airport. When we take a look at your weekend forecast, sunny and 56 on your Saturday, 59 though, increasing clouds on Sunday. Originally, we thought we'd see 60 on Sunday, but because of the increase in clouds, only 59, but still, that's about 10 degrees warmer than average. I'll have a look at your 7-day forecast in just a few moments.
10 degrees, perfect. Yeah. Tom, thank you very much.